TT120 is here. Put the kettle on. Let's have a look. Well, I don't even think the rail sleepers saw this one coming, because TT120 scale is back on the UK market after almost 60 years. Whoa! 3 major modelling manufacturers have now made new range announcements, and one in particular has jumped in with both feet first, unveiling a staggering catalogue almost overnight. This has been in the pipeline since 2017, we've since been informed, but what's available now if you want to hop on board, and who are the 3 already on the footplate with this? That said, what exactly is TT120 gauge? Who's it aimed at in today's market? How does it measure up compared to our UK love affair with, say, N gauge, double O gauge behind me, and even O gauge? Crucially, can the promises made finally live up to our modern day modelling expectations, demanding indeed, all at an affordable price point for everyone to consider? What could possibly go wrong with that? Is it for you? Is it for me? Is it a flash in the pan? Or is this the greatest thing to hit the modelling market in the UK since DCC? Stick around to find out, because we're heading over to the Mac Cave right now. Let's go! Okay, so here we are in the Mac Cave, and I'm going to try and answer some of these questions that I set out in the introduction. So, who are the manufacturers on board at the moment? Well, I do believe that TT120 scale is being manufactured, and the biggest company to be manufacturing TT120 scale outside the UK is Tillig. I think Bachmann do some, but we've just got going here in the UK, and I've got this on just to remind me a bit later on of something else. Okay, so I'm just looking at the screen, and I'll see if I can get the first image up. Let's have a look. So yeah, the 3 companies, right, so if we go here, this is the first UK manufacturer, Oxford Diecast, of model cars, okay, and I do believe Hornby did buy these out a few years ago, the remaining shares, okay, but don't hold me to it, and they are featuring 6 models so far for the future, so it looks imminent. From what I can glean, it's before Christmas, and Christmas is coming. So, won't go on about that too much. Okay. Right, the next company, 2 days ago, boom, and Hornby. Small world, big ideas. Smaller than the traditional double O, Hornby TT120 is a new compact scale perfect for creating your big ideas in a small world. Tabletop. That was what they used to call it, the tabletop scale, because it fit on one really well, a lot better than double O. You need a damn big table for double O to fit an oval track on that. But anyway, let's have a look. This is why I've got my badge on, not to get it mixed up with the Collectors Club. This is the T120 Club, and if you join before the 31st of January next year, and that's coming, so it's free. You get a 3 years annual membership for a limited time offer, and that's when it's limited till. So sign up before then. You get a little bundle bag with it, of course, badge and a whatever, and I'm not sure. And after the first of the second, on the first of the second 23, it's £30, and after your first year, after joining up free, it'll be £30, and the rest of the world 35. Right, so yeah, join up for free and get 15% off all the TT120 range, nothing else, just the TT120. And Simon Cole has said that there may be, most likely, gonna be some other bundle discounts as well, like 20% off a bundle, maybe some trees and a bit of track and what have you. So that's all there. Go and do it. Why not? No. Fantastic. There we go, 20%. Special promotional lines, bundles. Gosh. So yeah. Club magazine. Admit 1, free museum access. Well, it's very good. They're really going for this big style, aren't they? Really going. Yeah, you can go watch that. I've watched that. That's good. Joining is easy. So yeah, you get 3 years membership. Brilliant. So yeah, if we click back, Small world, big ideas. And before we go shop now, this video. So this shows, for the first time, something I was wondering about, how they look side by side. 00 on the left, and of course the new TT 120 tabletop scale on the right. This is it. What's it going to be like? What's it going to run like? We don't really know yet. Fits in the palm of your hand, look. And a little bit of a dip there. I think that might be the track, I'm not sure. But this is the first time I've watched it running. It dips there. That might be the points. Shame they haven't built the model a little bit better, but never mind. But look at the wagons, how they just clip together on the new coupling system that they're introducing. It looks like KD couplings of some sort, but yeah. When they're first released, they're just going to be DC models, but there is room. Now there, look, it's just chugging a bit, isn't it? It's just struggling a bit. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, DC, but there is going to be a chip coming, a new chip. So let's have a look at the train sets, 2 train sets available. And I think most people will probably go for the Flying Scotsman. Even though one of the designers said he liked the other, I think, a little bit. Interestingly enough, that is not the Flying Scotsman shown there. But anyway, it is the Flying Scotsman. 2 Pullman coaches and some track. And look, next 18 socket for DC status. And you will be able to fit a Sugar Cube speaker in these if Simon is true to his word. So there we go. That's that. Let's just have a look at the locomotives. Or we could just, yeah, there's the Flying Scotsman. There's loads. Look at that. The Intercity, which is behind me at the moment, but in 00 scale. Well, it's big stuff, you know. None of it's really available just yet, but any time now, I believe, before Christmas. Shop now. It's going to be all sorts, you know. Going to be all sorts. When is it going to come in? It's going to be phased in. They're not going to have annual releases. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3 usually, but there could be a Phase 4, it says. And these could trickle in as and when they come through. So let's hope there's not the lag that there has been in the past. Let's hope they've really got this together, but I'm sure they've wanted to get it out and let everybody know. The other company where I first saw it advertised was Pico. Not to be confused with Pico. Pico, yeah, a UK-based company and manufacture all their own track and points and things. And I was looking for more information about Insel Frog points and Unifrog against Electro Frog, and lo and behold, they're doing now, you know, the flexible track that we all love, wooden sleeper for 120 scale. So it's here and it's available. Pico haven't messed about at all. There's the point, medium. They're just doing a medium radius right hand Unifrog point at the moment. Everything eventually will go to Unifrog. That's what Pico said, everything. And you just got one continuous blade with Unifrog. Marvellous points. So you don't get as much current loss. And of course, look at this. Fantastic. If you know more about points and stuff. Anyway, we're not here to discuss that, are we? But look, they're also doing a good range of buildings made out of wood, of all things. Yeah, not cardboard. Wood, not resin. Laser cut wooden kits with plastic chimney pot detail and glazing sheet. So I think they're going to look really good, these as well. So they're the 3 companies. Pico, Hornby and Oxford Diecast so far. Into the room for a second. Hold on, let me just shut. So yeah, let's just come back in the room. Yeah, we're back in the room. That's better. Okay, so question 2. What exactly is TT120 gauge and scale? Well, it was introduced and it was invented by a former automotive designer called Hal Joyce, who founded a company, HP Products, in 1945 in the US. In the 50s, it came through Europe, into Germany, into the UK, and as the 60s approached and N-Gage took off, it was literally shelved in this country until now. But not to get that confused with the Triang range, the British TT 3mm scale. That scale is 1 to 101.6. The 3mm Society is another British-based society which caters for railway modellers of this scale too. That's a brief history as to where we're at and what it is. So I can give you a bit more information. It has a scale of 2.54mm to the foot and uses 12mm gauge track, just like the TT scale used both in the USA and continental Europe, and it's still been used there. So all the locomotives from there and here now and the rolling stock should all link up. Fabulous. Wow. Finally. That's that. So then, who's this TT 120 gauge aimed at exactly? Well, it's aimed at those with restricted space, I'd say, and somebody that wants to go between 00 and N-Gage. N-Gage being too small, especially when you get over a certain age, it starts looking a bit blurred. And for those who don't want to go as big as 00, I think everyone's saying this is the perfect scale to model in. Now, as a kid, I did once come across the TT scale in a shop that was sadly demolished in 2004. And it was run by two guys, and I'm going to try and get a picture of it onto the screen. Let's have a look. So here it is, Ilkley Model Centre. Now, this looks like a really old photograph, but if you look at these cars here, that's not that old a car, is it? No, of course it isn't, Andy. All right then, Ilkley Model Shop. It was literally a wooden hut, and it's where all my modelling dreams began. Wonder where yours began. So how does the new tabletop or reintroduced tabletop TT 120 gauge measure up to, say, Isle of Affair in the UK with N-Gage and 00 gauge like back there? I can never get used to cameras. And, you know, O gauge, for instance. So, right, I can get used to this. So let's have a look. Let's have a look. Here we go. So here's the first picture that I'm putting up for you, and let me get this right. That's it. So as we look at the screen on the left hand side where my arrow is, if you can watch it, I need to get a better point, so I will do, but yeah. So Z scale, I don't know who models in that, but somebody must. No, it's just that you know, it's a bit small for me, is that right? N-Gage is what we've had a bit of a love affair, and that's what put this TT scale firmly back in the box for nearly 60 years. I'll have a affair with that. But they're producing more of this stuff now abroad than this. So no wonder we're introducing it again in this country. Then we go to HO scale, and this is the track used by 00 gauge. I'll explain in a minute. And then we go to S gauge, O gauge, we see a lot of that in this country as well, 1 gauge, and G scale. But we can't see 00, which sits about here. So I'm going to put another slide up and we'll look at that. So this one is a better representation of that. Here we are. We can clearly see 00 gauge and TT gauge together, one above the other, and we can see N-Gage below it. So now we can firmly and clearly see that TT tabletop scale does sit right between the two, and it's a perfectly scaled model. Our next slide, where we show Pico Streamline, and it's the SL100 Code 100 track that I use on my model layouts. A little bit of set track as well to go around some bends. It's always good to have a bit of set track in it. And then in the middle, of course, we've got the new? Well, the reintroduced tabletop scale, and below that, the N gauge track. Now we can see it sits between, and I used to be confused about HO00, where this comes from. How can HO fit on 00 track, and how can 00 models fit on HO track? What are they on about? Well, even though, and if we go to the next slide, even though HO is 187 scale, which is just a bit smaller than 00 at 176, 00 gauge sits on HO scale track. So what they've done is modelled the width of the wheels in HO scale and the body in 00. So one's in 187 scale, the wheel width, some of the wheels and some of the spacings. That's why they can look a bit odd. That's why sometimes they can look a little bit set back compared to other models. They look more set back in because it's sitting really on a HO chassis. It's a 00 gauge model. So that's why they're saying TT gauge is a perfectly scaled model, as is HO, of course, an N gauge. So now we have finally shaved a few corners off and got it right instead of being all British about it. Okay, right, stop press, because why is HO slightly smaller, or should I say, why is 00 slightly bigger than HO, and why does it sit on a HO chassis? Well, it was after World War I when they introduced 00 gauge models, which was half the scale of O, and this featured a track with a gauge of 6.5 millimeters between the rails to represent real-life standard gauge track. The trains that were to run on these tracks would have a scale of 1.87, which is 3.5 millimeters to 1 foot, and production began. The problem came when they tried to replicate British locomotives, as they have a smaller loading gauge than most engines around the world. Try as they might, the manufacturers could not squeeze early clockwork and electric mechanisms into the smaller body shells that were needed to replicate the British locomotives. So after a lot of head scratching, the decision was made to increase the scale of British models to 176.2. And that equates to 4 millimeters to 1 foot. But for economic reasons, they kept the original track gauge. Despite the anomaly, this was accepted by consumers, as they were just delighted to now have a model railway available to them, which was both affordable and a sensible size. Thus, 00 gauge was born. As time passed and technology evolved, it became perfectly possible to create a mechanism to fit in a 187 scale body shell of a British locomotive, but no manufacturer would take the risk of changing the scale of their mainstream products, because the public had tended to acquire the models over time, operating old and new together. Due to HO and 00 gauge rolling stock not sitting well together, it was felt that a loss of custom would be inevitable if such a move were to take place. So the production of 00 gauge has continued to present day how it is. So there we go. For modelers who desire ultimate realism, there are more accurate representations of track and rolling stock available, but for most the compromise is acceptable, and 00 gauge has remained to this day the nation's favourite. Well, possibly until now. So that solves that. Fabulous. That solves that. Take my jacket off now. We're going to have a quick look at this one. Again, we can see TT gauge and 00HO gauge. So let's have a look at this one. This shows all sorts of scales. My goodness me. So look here. UK and France, 143.5 O gauge. 145 O gauge. I mean, I'm not going to try and guess, but I could, but I'll probably get it wrong, so I'll leave it to you. 148 gauge O gauge in the US, then 164 S gauge, 176.2. Then we've got the 132 1 gauge, not I gauge, and then the G scale or G gauge, which is 122.5. At least that's not a 0.6 or a 0.1 or a 0.2. Right, and this is where we get interesting. So we can see that T scale is 1 to 480. We've got T scale here. We've got another T scale, so 1 to 450 instead of 480. Then the ZZ scale, 1 to 300. So, wow, we've got some real scale shifts going as we go throughout Europe and America, right, and the world. And then we've got Z scale, 1 to 220. Then we've got N scale, N gauge, 1 to 160. And then we've got the 2mm scale, 1 to 152. And then this is what we're really looking at, isn't it? TT scale, which is 1 to 120. And that's what TT 120 stands for, of course. Tabletop scale, that's what TT stands for. Keep saying that so we get it all clearly in our heads. And then, of course, here's the triang range that was around in the 60s in the UK, 1 to 101.6, or called the 3mm scale. My goodness me. And then on top of that, we've got the HO scale. No wonder I was confused as a kid, which is 187 scale. No wonder when the guy looked over in the model shop and said, oh, that's HO scale. Could have been, couldn't it? It could have been. He just looked over, he was busy. The shop was condensated. There used to be condensation running down the windows inside. But the models were fabulous. I've got some brilliant Dinkin Corgi box cars still at home that were like 55p each. I think I've got an American ambulance and it's got the original Corgi Members Club leaflet inside just to run off a little bit. And that leaflet's worth more than the car, and the box is usually worth as much as the cars. So anyway, I've got loads in boxes, but I'm going to have to get them out and dig them out and show you them all and have a look at them sometime, but that's another tale. So there's a look at all the scales, but the main ones we're looking at is HO to triang, not to get those two confused. This is the reintroduced tabletop scale, and there's N gauge, and there's 00 at 176.2 to be exact. My dear me. That's that. Excellent. I think we've got there. It's been an interesting journey, hasn't it? It's like, no wonder I was confused as a kid. No wonder. Down in the little wood hut model shop where it all began. All those years ago. Yeah, there's some guitars back there. That's another story as well. So, right, back down to the LocoLift. Well, that's just about it for this one. Back with the layout. Well, at least one end of it anyway. Hopefully see you soon. Enjoy the journey, don't forget that, and hopefully you'll give us a thumbs up if you like the content today. Hopefully you've got a little bit closer as to finding out a little bit more about TT120 scale. I certainly have. And yeah, always subscribe, it won't harm the credit rating, don't worry. And from Andy and Modeloco, all things model railway, we'll see you again soon. Okay, bye for now and keep modelling.